On trade relations front and center of a trip to Russia by India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, on a three-day mission as Delhi bolsters its own position amid tariff pressure from Washington over its growing and now considerable dependence on crude oil from Russia. The Trump administration to double its duties on Indian imports later this month to up to 50%. Now, that's up from the 25% imposed earlier this month. The US president hitting out at India's buying of Russian oil, which he says funds and fuels the Kremlin's war in Ukraine. But Russia maintaining it can hold out on threats from Washington. The Russian embassy in India touting a, quote, very special mechanism that can ensure continued oil supplies to New Delhi. The embassy also slamming the additional 25% US tariffs on Indian goods, saying Moscow will work on improving payment systems and removing trade barriers with New Delhi. The embassy official pointing to a meeting in the Indian capital by year-end between the Indian Prime Minister and the Russian President. Narendra Modi and Vladimir Putin having maintained friendly ties over the years, with a meeting next month set on the sidelines of the annual summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And from Ishan, Garg joins us live from New Delhi. Ishan, India there balancing ties with Russia and elsewhere in its region as well.
Well, certainly, this is a very important visit by India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar to Moscow, followed just a few weeks after India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval had also been to Moscow. And these two trips of very senior level, high-level Indian officials who are also considered very close to Prime Minister Narendra Modi is being done keeping in mind that Vladimir Putin could be coming to India by the end of this year. And these visits look to be setting up the stage for that visit that will happen. But apart from that, energy trade especially is going to be a big talking point during these meetings. We understand that Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar will be meeting with Sergei Lavrov in Russia on Thursday, and this subject is likely to be on the agenda because we had a special press conference from the Russian embassy in New Delhi where the Russian official said that Russia will find ways of exporting more and more oil to India because they say that Russian and Indian economies have found this very unique complementarity. Russian officials also criticizing the USA for, in a way, bullying other world economies by using sanctions and secondary tariffs. Now, India hasn't commented on Russia's accusations on the USA, but Indian officials have maintained that the tariffs that were imposed by the USA for trading Russian oil on India, they have been called unjustified by New Delhi in the past. So it is going to be a diplomatic tightrope walk for New Delhi to try and maintain close ties with its biggest defense partner and now its biggest energy partner, Russia, while also maintaining close ties with the USA. Some experts here are saying that some of it also depends on how the war in Ukraine pans out, because if a peace solution is reached in the near future, President Donald Trump's stance on India could eventually soften as well.
Of course, Ishan, a major energy partner, Russia for India, but that's for oil. If we include natural gas, the U.S. certainly would beat Russia on that. But I was looking forward to that big meeting potentially at the end of this year in New Delhi as Russia's president takes up that invitation from India's prime minister. How is India preparing for this high-level visit?
Well, this is going to be a very significant visit, and there will be a meeting before that when Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Vladimir Putin will travel to China for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and we are expecting a bilateral meeting there. But a more substantive one will, of course, happen when and if President Vladimir Putin comes to India. And this visit, which is going to be just some time after Prime Minister Modi visits China, it has already started speculations about this trilateral dialogue between Russia, India and China being resuscitated because it had been dormant for quite some time. And this is a troika that may not be seen very favorably by Washington. Experts and foreign policy observers here have said that India's foreign policy objectives towards the USA, they need to be seen separately from what sort of policy India pursues with Russia and China. But American analysts and American politicians might not see it the same way.
All right. Oh, thanks for that. Ishan Garg there reporting live for us. And Dasha Chernyshova joins us live now from Moscow. Dasha, we heard that from Ishan just a moment ago. This troika, China, Russia and India, that could be of concern to Washington. But we just look at relations between Russia and India. Russia coming out to say it can hold out against any pressure from Washington in terms of those oil supplies, sales of oil from Russia to India. It says it has a very special mechanism to ensure that supplies can continue at the current level to India.
That's right. It is Roman Babushkin, the chargé d'affaires of the Russian embassy in India, that has been given these comments. And he was widely quoted suggesting that Russia will continue its energy exports to India no matter what, stressing that there are very, very special mechanisms to continue with that. Now, under those mechanisms, we understand the conversation is about the trade in bilateral currencies, first of all, but also the system of the so-called payment settlements, as well as the use of the Russian shadow fleet to transfer oil from Russia to India, because geographically, obviously, that is not the most convenient destination from Russia to India in terms of oil because of the vicinity of the Persian Gulf. We also understand that Moscow is providing a good discount on its oil that is coming to the Indian market, and that discount makes it much more attractive for India to continue trading with Russia in energy resources. And also, we are hearing that there is an expectation that the sides will only continue to increase bilateral trade over. The expectation is, according to the Russian officials, that it will be growing at least by 10% every year. But that is obviously coming as the United States is threatening more tariffs on India for trading with Russia. And with regard to that, we understand that Moscow is trying to make sure that its ties with India are as close as ever, suggesting that there could be a potential summit between the leaders of these two countries that will be held by the end of this year. And also, we understand that the two leaders, Putin and Narendra Modi, will have an opportunity to speak at the ASEO summits in the coming weeks. So certainly a lot of expectations that these issues, the threats of further tariffs, will be raised by the highest level representation of Russia and India in the coming time.
All right, those would be the highest level discussions. But meanwhile, we do have Dr. S. Jaishankar. He will be meeting Russia's foreign minister, that's Mr. Sergei Lavrov, tomorrow. Of course, we have a good idea what they're likely to discuss, security as well as trade. But what can we expect in terms of any concrete readouts from this meeting between these two foreign ministers tomorrow?
Well, certainly the expectation is that the two will be trying to coordinate their actions on the international agenda, on the international stage when it comes to cooperating in different international organizations. The two countries share approaches on various issues, but still they have to so-called check the clocks. And we understand that the ties will be talking about bilateral agenda as well as international issues. Look, the Russian president held a conversation with Narendra Modi just recently, briefing his Indian counterpart on how Russia's talks have concluded with the U.S. counterpart. Those were the negotiations in Alaska. That means that the sides do want to maintain the shared and close position to one another. So the expectation is that they will be trying to coordinate their efforts. But keep in mind that Jaishankar is also meeting Russia's deputy prime minister, Denis Manturov, who is responsible for the development of Russian industry and is also participating in several events that are all designated to contribute to beefing up trade and economic cooperation between Russia and India. So a lot is on the agenda, and we're indeed expecting some arrangements to be made that will bring in the positions of these two countries even closer and making cooperation easier.
Oh, thanks. Dasha, Chernyshova live there from Moscow.